Do you condemn that phrase, globalize the Intifada?
That's not language that I use. The language that I use and the language that I will continue to use to lead this city is that which speaks clearly to my intent, which is an intent grounded in a belief in universal human rights.
Illuminati is a thing you need to watch out for. They want to depopulate and slave us so much more. World domination, I'll get into that later. I'm hardcore, fierce and sexy. You're just a hater. You deserve the ridicule cause you're an absolute zero. I'm the keeper of the chalice, a rock and roll hero. I'm not an idiot nobody listens to, cause I'm not a failure in life like you. Let's talk about Bill Gates and the mark of the beast, and the orgies in the streets at the Catholic feasts, and Bill and Hillary's human trafficking ring, and George Soros got the money to pay for everything. Socialism is for losers, working for the devil. Chumps that can't fight, they ain't on my level. It takes an evil one to try to debunk and doubt it, so I'd rather die than stop talking about it. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out, watch out, watch out, watch out. Watch out for the Illuminati. Watch out for the Illuminati.
And the truth is, you shouldn't take life advice from someone who doesn't have enough life experience to give that life advice.
Right. Please take her advice. That is the advice to take, which is not to take the advice of somebody who hasn't lived life. The lady is right. And, yeah. You're not going to want someone who's wet behind the ears to give you advice on life experience if they haven't experienced life themselves. And that's pretty much the gist of it. You can't have inexperienced people as your leader. That's why you got people like me who have the right to call ourselves a life coach. Now, on with Zohran Mamdani. But before we get into Zohran Mamdani, I just want to say that I'm enjoying this cup of coffee from Wild Bagels. And if you want fine coffee like this and bagels delivered to you, you could give them a call at 718-333-WILD. If you're in the Gravesend, Bensonhurst area, that is the thing to do. Wild Bagels. And boy, oh boy, those bagels are wild. Now on with Zohran Mamdani. You saw at the beginning, he's tiptoeing around the question regarding the word Intifada. That's because, on the low-low, he is the Intifada mayoral candidate. He's a socialist. He's a radical jihadist. He's an Intifada kind of guy. And you got a lot of people that spout that word as if it's a good thing. They don't even know what the hell it means. And he's all for it. He's all for wiping out an entire race of people. And what's really dangerous, he wants to do it through socialism. It somehow doesn't math, but I'm sure his efforts to do this will leave this city in a mess if he's elected mayor. It's not a good thing. It's not a good look for this city to elect this man mayor. And you got far-left fanatical media. I saw a YouTube where some left-wing fanatical guy was on there talking about how he won the mayoral election. He did not win the mayoral election. He won the Democratic nomination for the mayor's office. And that tells you how far off of what aligns with what the needs of New Yorkers the Democratic Party has become. this is a party that either ignores crime or embraces the criminals. And this is not a good look for New York City. We can't have the city get worse than it is. We can't even have the city coast along as bad as it is under the current mayor, Eric Adams, who's running for re-election as an independent now. Think how much worse it would be with Zohran Mandani. Now, a lot of people are thinking, well, the city sucks, but let's continue to have it suck under Eric Adams to prevent the city from getting even worse under Zohran Mamdani. What a cowardice approach to take. That is a cowardice approach. Eric Adams does not have a better shot at winning this election than Curtis Sliwa. Here's why I say that. Because you have somebody who continued the mess. That's right, the mess left behind by Bill de Blasio. Bill de Blasio left the city in a crime-ridden, graffiti-infested mess. And Eric Adams just took the baton and kept going with it. He basically did, for how bad the city is, he took Bill de Blasio's badly run city and kept it running badly the way Bloomberg took the baton of Rudy Giuliani when the city was being run pretty much with a clampdown on crime, and the city was safe under Giuliani and Bloomberg. I didn't like Bloomberg's dictatorial ways, but at least the city was safe. Now, I'm not saying we should have another Mayor Bloomberg. He proved to be too extreme and too much of a, as I said, of a totalitarian than one would want in a mayor. You need somebody who's in tune with the needs of New Yorkers, like Curtis Sliwa. And I'll say it again, the Sliwa campaign is winnable. The Sliwa campaign is winnable. And if Zohran Mandani becomes mayor, it's not the fault of the Sliwa voter. It would be the fault of the Cuomo voter and the vote of the Adams voter. It'll be their fault. Their fault if Mamdani becomes the mayor of New York. But as I see it, if people are going to vote for their respective Democrat, one who actually has the Democratic nomination and the two Democrats that went independent, the Republicans should be able to slip right in. I know nobody's alive watching my video that remembers the 1912 presidential elections. But in the 1912 presidential elections, former President Teddy Roosevelt, a Republican, ran as a bull moose. They created a party just for him called the Bull Moose Party. And that split the Republican vote with then incumbent President William Taft, allowing for the Democrat Woodrow Wilson to slip right in and bring his radical agenda to the United States. That, lowered the impact of tariffs and brought on all sorts of rights for the federal government to tax U.S. citizens. So we had somebody with a radical agenda getting in because the Republican vote was split. Fast forward to 2025 mayoral race. Now it's the Democrat vote that's getting split. Not 2 ways, but 3 ways. And for those of you who can't stand Adams, but are still thinking of voting for him, thinking of how much worse it would be if Mamdani were mayor, why not just stop wasting your vote on Adams and just vote for Curtis Sliwa? It makes more sense. It simply makes more sense. Mamdani is literally the Intifada mayoral candidate. And I don't even think he knows truly what the word means. But for those who do and actually think this is somehow a good thing, those people are hell-bent on pure evil and dragging this city further down than it already is. You're going to want to vote against him. You're going to not want to vote for Adams or Cuomo. You want to uplift this city and elect somebody who's dedicated his life to public safety for 4 decades. 4 decades. This man has been trooping through the streets of New York, keeping the streets and subways safe, even going against the establishment to keep the streets and subways safe in the beginning of his run with the Guardian Angels. And so this is a guy you're going to want in office now, because public safety is priority 1 here in New York City. It just is. Look around. Open up any local newspaper. Not just a Post. You could open up the Daily News, who has very harsh criticism of Republican leadership, and even they have no choice in the matter but to report the crime that exists in our streets. They might deny that that crime is because of the Democrats, but make no mistake, crime runs rampant because of the Democrats. So do not elect any Democrat or anyone who served public office as a Democrat to avoid the worst Democrat from becoming mayor. Screw all those Democrats and just vote Republican. We need a red New York, and I will stop at nothing. I tell you what, only my violent demise into the afterlife will stop me in my efforts to turn New York red. We need a red New York. And we're going to start with the man with the red beret, Curtis Sliwa. Now, apparently he's been giving words of praise recently for Donald Trump, but I hope his talk of opposite sentiment didn't hurt his campaign, because you got a lot of Trumpers that are seeing some of his archived statements about Trump, even referring to himself as a never-Trumper, and they're very discouraged by that. They also see that Trump pardoned Eric Adams, and he has a sympathetic ear toward Eric Adams, and even said that Eric Adams was railroaded, which he was, just for speaking against the federal Democratic policies. But still acted on those Democratic policies, which is why we're in the mess we're in today. Eric Adams went against how he spoke, but because he spoke how he spoke, he got railroaded and got indicted for something very petty, even though politicians in the past have committed worse crimes. Hell, some have even committed crimes against humanity. Look at Andrew Cuomo. He was offered a medical ship and a retooled Javits Center for COVID patients, and instead of putting the COVID patients on this ship and in this Javits Center turned medical center, he crams them into nursing homes, killing thousands of senior citizens who would still be alive today if not for him doing that. So it's a no-go on Andrew Cuomo. And it should also be a no-go on Eric Adams. And now you're figuring, well, we got to vote for one of these two guys because Zohran Mamdani will become mayor and it'll make matters worse. Why not skip through all three of those and just go right for Sliwa? As I said, we need a red New York anyway. Now, I'm not saying Curtis Sliwa is going to be exactly like Giuliani, who in my opinion was the best mayor in my lifetime. Yes, even better than Ed Koch, who wasn't really a bad mayor, even though he ran as a Democrat. When he ran for re-election for a second term, he was actually on the Democrat and Republican ticket. He went virtually unchallenged because of how he lifted the city up from the Abe Beam days. But fast forward to 2025, we have the potential for a mayor that I'm not guaranteeing will be as good as Giuliani, but will be even better than Ed Koch, who actually confronted Sliwa in the early days of organizing the Guardian Angels. We can't afford to elect any Democrat or anyone who's ever held a public office as a Democrat. All four at some point in their life have been Democrats, but Curtis Sliwa, since turning Republican, has been steady, going with the right side of history. He didn't flip-flop like Michael Bloomberg, going from Democrat to Republican to Independent, back to Republican, swinging all the way to Democrat, trying to campaign against a bunch of other Democrats for the nomination to go against Trump way back in 2019, 2020. We don't have a flip-floppy guy in Curtis Sliwa. Once he changes position, he stays right there and doesn't flip it back and forth. But you have people like Adams who are now telling the people what they want to hear, but still not doing what the people want him to do, which is simply make our city safe. He's doing nothing to make our city safe. Curtis Sliwa, the record speaks for itself. He took a stand against crime running rampant because of the Democrats, and he formed a task force that helped make the city safe. And when they were originally demonized and branded as vigilantes, he proved that he could work within the law to get the criminals off the streets and behind bars, and even work with NYPD. And if you notice now, a lot of coppers support him now. A lot of the police department support Curtis Sliwa and are actually grateful for the guardian angels and all the fine work they've done. Curtis Sliwa is also an advocate for animal rights, which is very important because none of the other three are supporting no-kill shelters. So under the mayorship of any one of the other three candidates, little kittens will go to the gas chamber just because nobody found them cute enough to adopt them into their homes. And that is a damn shame, and we can't allow for that either. So, for safe streets, safe subways, and the lives of kittens, I'm going with Curtis Sliwa, not the Intifada mayoral candidate, not the granny killer, and not the do-nothing. I'm going with the personification of boots on the ground, Curtis Sliwa. Respect God, watch out for the Illuminati, follow and share this content, take my life advice, stay strong, keep kicking that slang. It's your boy in the building, hip-hop legend, recording engineer, underground rock and roll hero, MC Too Tall.